It's time to analyze if the JMU transfers to UCLA are ready for Big Ten play.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, joined today by David Schultz of Locked On Sunbelt. Come back every day. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free, wherever it's your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. We're in the midst of a crazy portal season. The Bruins are stacking up the James Madison transfers, and that's why I have David Schultz with the JMU hat on, but he covers the whole conference. We're talking about the Dukes, the Sun Belt champions today. David, thanks for coming on. Well, what do you think of the Dukes this year, actually making the playoffs since we last chatted?
Oh, we've had a lot of fun with that. Obviously, they got in there because the ACC screwed up, and Miami should have been the representative from the ACC, although they got in there as well. But when Duke won it, and with all the tiebreakers, kind of an odd deal with that situation. But loved it that JMU was in there. Right, their only tough game that they had, honestly, out of conference was Louisville, and they were in that ball game. Two big plays by the Cards, and one crossing pattern and one sweep, and that was the difference in the ball game. I think Louisville gained exactly one more yard than JMU did in that ball game, and JMU's offense wasn't as cohesive as it was throughout the year because they were splitting time with Alonzo Barnett III and Matt Sluka. Alonzo Barnett had injured himself on the last play of the regular season in 24, and so he wasn't fully healthy. I'm going to say 70-75% when the season started. But they're a good football team. Defensively, they were outstanding. 6 times this year, they shut out the opponents in the second half. That's amazing. That is some quite the adjustments that Bob Chesney and crew did this year. And I think they were worthy of the playoff. You know, I went out there on a limb, I guess. They played better against Oregon and Eugene. And if you just want to take the first half, that's fine with me. They played better against Oregon and Eugene than Texas Tech did on a neutral field. All right.
And Texas Tech spent millions of dollars on their team and their D-line. And Oregon
defensively, Defensively, Texas Tech was amazing. They played extremely well. Offensively, they did not. So Oregon had, JMU had, 197 yards in the first half and 6 points. I believe it took Texas Tech 3.5 quarters to get to 198 yards. I think they finished with 215 yards in there. But JMU had a really good season, and I think UCLA is getting a heck of a football coach, Bob Chesney.
Yeah, Bob Chesney comes over from JMU, brings an extensive list of coaches, staffers in the building, everything possible he can bring over to UCLA. He did, as Billy Napier now takes over that JMU program. UCLA, as we record this podcast, David, UCLA has 7 commits from James Madison. The list is as follows. You have Wayne Knight, who's probably the biggest of the signees. You have Landon Ellis, their number 1 receiver, DJ Barksdale, Josh Pfeiffer, Aiden Gobera, Riley Robel, and J.D. Rayner. We're going to start with the headline here before we dive into the other guys. Wayne Knight. Wayne Knight seemed to be the big guy to get for UCLA. I know the MVP of the league was Alonzo Barnett III, but the Bruins already have a quarterback with Nico. They needed to pair a running back alongside a lot of other pieces to make this offense good. Wayne Knight, with his offensive coordinator coming over to UCLA, what do you make of Wayne Knight's ability to succeed at UCLA?
Well, that's going to be interesting because he's a little dude. All right, he's 5'6", stocky at 189 pounds, finished with just over 1,000 yards in the regular season, came up big with over 200 yards in the Sun Belt Championship against Troy when they needed it in the second half. That was a ball game. It was 17-14 JMU, and you got not only the Sun Belt Championship on the line, but a playoff berth as well to win it. And Wayne Knight and Barnett III came up big with running plays late in the fourth quarter, in fact. So we'll see if he can, withstand, playing in the Big Ten. All right. He's a little guy. So maybe they're going to tell you he's tough to see behind the offensive line. And so he can scat past you. He's one of those guys that can put the foot in the ground and make one cut and be gone. And so he's very talented. We'll see if his size stacks up in the Big Ten. But these days, every school has numerous running backs. Very rarely is anyone getting 25, 30 carries a ball game, right? Somewhere between 15 and 20. And you're rotating usually 2 or 3 guys in there. But Wayne Knight, by the way, is he's a 3-down back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. So he can be very useful for that. That may be his role at UCLA. We'll see.
2,000 all-purpose yards this year, was a kick returner at his time, had 19 punt returns. So this is a guy UCLA can throw in there. You need a game-changing special teams play. I'm not sure if he'd be fully as a kick returner, but he might go return a punt. It's not that he's returned a punt for a touchdown this year, last couple of years. But the Bruins need all sorts of offense potential, right? Special teams, game changers on the offensive line to block for Wayne Knight. Because you talk about the size of Knight. Ashton Genty's only 5'8", and he was one of the Raiders' top picks. I'm a huge Raiders fan, so obviously I've watched a lot of terrible football in most recent years between UCLA and the Raiders. And here's the thing. Genty was second in the Heisman race. I remember running into a UNLV offensive lineman. He's like, Genty should win the Heisman. He just destroyed our defense 2 games in that 2024 campaign a season ago. And then he goes to the Raiders. They have no O-line. So Wayne Knight could translate. It's just what can UCLA put in front of him to block for him? And it seemed like Wayne Knight at James Madison had just enough. Did it look like, do you feel like the Sun Belt competition was good this year, or was it a step below its usual year-to-year variance?
Yeah, probably not as good as I had thought it was going to be. I thought Georgia Southern was going to be better. The Cajuns were banged up. They weren't nearly as good. They took care of the one team that I thought was going to give them trouble was Old Dominion. Old Dominion was very good this year. All right. They stubbed their toe against Marshall, got blown out.
They scored the first touchdown of the year against Indiana, Old Dominion did.
Yeah. And again, what Indiana just do against Alabama? ODU lost to Indiana in Indiana 27-14. All right. So they held their own. So ODU and Colton Joseph, who's going to Wisconsin, by the way, they're pretty good. They had a very good year. But that was really kind of the only competition that they had. I don't know if they slept-walked through that Georgia State ball game where they did win 14-7. They were down 7-0 at half. But I don't think the competition was quite as it had been over the last couple of years. Coastal Carolina kind of muddles through it. It wasn't quite. The Sun Belt is maybe the only conference that still has divisions, and so it's easy to keep track of the coaches and the quarterbacks that way. But no, the Sun Belt wasn't quite as good as it had been. Southern Miss got off to a tremendous start at 7-2 after going 1-11 the year before. The only problem is they lost their last 4 ball games, so they ended up 7-6. So not quite as good as it had been. So Troy just kept on winning towards the end, and they overcame Southern Miss. They went into Hattiesburg to take care of the Golden Eagles to get to play JMU. And that may have been one of the tougher games that JMU was playing. JMU could not get anything going offensively. And again, it was 17-14, about 12 minutes left to go in the game. Troy had the ball and could not do anything. They got a couple of turnovers from JMU in that game, could not take advantage of that. So, no, I would say the Sun Belt wasn't quite as it had been in the past. Usually there's 2 or 3 really good teams, if not 4, trying to vie for that division title. But not so much this year. That doesn't take away from what JMU did. I don't want to do that at all because they were dominating defensively. It's one thing to shut down your opponents, another thing to shut them out, especially in a conference that everybody calls it the Fun Belt because everyone usually puts up a lot of points. But no, I think Wayne Knight had a very solid year. A lot of running was shared with Barnett. He scored a bunch of rushing touchdowns. Colton Joseph, I think, for ODU had over 1,000 yards. Colton Joseph was like the 4th leading rusher, 5th leading rusher in the league as the quarterback for ODU. But I think Wayne Knight, we'll see how much he plays. Again, can't do anything about the height, but he's stocky at almost 190 pounds, being only 5'6".
UCLA with 6 other JMU transfers at the moment. We'll touch on that next here on Locked On UCLA. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. between the subscriptions you forgot about, the bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction and hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control, find and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, and monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. The automatic transaction categorization is a game changer with Rocket Money. You can see exactly where your money is going each month, set your budgets, goals, get those personalized insights, and have your alerts for those big transactions, upcoming bills, and more. Consolidates checking and gives you a clear view of your entire financial picture. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster here in 2026. Join rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Now let's analyze the rest of the JMU transfers. UCLA has a total of 7. We've gone over Wayne Knight. Let's go to DJ Barksdale, a key add in the secondary for UCLA that continues to build and build for Colin Hitchler's defense, the JMU defensive coordinator, who you mentioned had a great year for James Madison in the 2025 season. 6 second half shutouts, and he's getting a key piece in Barksdale to return to UCLA.
Yeah, Barksdale's another player that plays above his size, 5'7", 180, which is not big for a corner. Started all 14 ball games, 36 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and had a couple of picks. He was third team all Sun Belt, and he plays a lot of nickel and slot. And so he's one of those key guys because where do teams go when they need to convert that third down? And so he's going to try and break up and get UCLA off the field. So that's a nice addition, bringing some leadership over to UCLA from Harrisonburg.
Do you think there's some concern about that size? You keep bringing it up with Wayne Knight or more as a DB.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is what it is, right? I don't know how many 6'4" wide receivers there are, or 6'3" wide receivers, or 6'2" wide receivers there are in the Sun Belt.
But there are plenty in the Big Ten.
Plenty in the Big Ten.
And plenty that are riding the bench in the Big Ten too that are just elite. Sure. So, and the thing about Barksdale, though, 4 interceptions in his career last couple of years, 8 tackles for loss. He has returned one of those for a touchdown. That was in 24. But he's also versatile because he was a 2023 kick returner. He returned kicks for JMU. This was before Wayne Knight was truly in the fold. Right. So this is the guy that returned kicks for Kurt Signetti's team at JMU. So this is a guy that's well-rounded if UCLA even wants to utilize that in the special teams.
Well, you're giving, Chesney a lot of options, and guys that he's familiar with. It's one thing, bringing in these transfers or whomever he's inheriting at UCLA, and it's another thing to know the transfers that he's already familiar with. So that's got to be comforting to Chesney.
Now we move back to the offensive side. You got Landon Ellis, JMU's leading receiver, who had 36 receptions, 624 yards, 5 touchdowns, 17 yards of reception. So he was getting chunk yardage, but probably low for a leading receiver of a playoff team that loved to run the football.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only JMU wide receiver in the top 20 in receptions in the conference. So they just did not throw the ball very much. And certainly when Matt Sluka was in there, they didn't throw the ball at all. And so eventually, even in the Troy ball game, in the championship game, Alonzo Barnett III was having trouble throwing the ball. So they just decided we're going to do RPO, and it's either going to be Alonzo or Wayne Knight. And that worked as Troy had trouble late in the fourth quarter. I don't know about you, Zach, but it always happens. When you come down from the press box with 5 minutes left to go, that's when they rip off the chunk plays. Nothing you could do about it. I missed the 40-yard run by Wayne Knight and like the 26-yard touchdown run by Barnett. Always bound to happen. Nonetheless, they run the football. And so, obviously, Landon, I still believe, as much as I like the spread, and you might want to use new offenses to incorporate the run, you got to be able to run the football, and you got to be able to use that to pass the football. So we'll see what Chesney's going to do. Obviously, I think Bob's one of those guys, and it's always an interesting question. You have your offense. How do you shape it around the players that you have? Right? Are we trying to put a square peg in a round hole, or do we adjust the offense based on the talent that we have? And with Nico, who can run it, but who also can sling it a little bit, you look for Landon Ellis to have a big year.
I think that's where you bring in the offensive coordinator. UCLA is kind of giving Dean Kennedy a similar Alonzo Barnett III, just more athletic. I would think a little quicker. I don't know the official numbers, but taller. I know Nico does have the same problem of having his passes batted down, but this is an offense where it's like you don't really have to change a whole lot. The Bruins just have to get bigger up front, which we'll touch on in a moment. But you bring in Nico, that's a good pairing with Wayne Knight, a big quarterback or a
Sure.
smaller running back.
Right.
And then you got Ellis, who knows the offense in a day where UCLA brought in 3 other receiver transfers from various teams and various conferences. I think Ellis gets that first crack at a lion's share of targets just because he knows the offense, which might be pretty simple if it's just RPO, run the football, go get open. But you need somebody who knows the offense, and then the other guys can build throughout the season.
Well, he's going to have to build that relationship with Nico, right? It's not only him knowing the offense and teaching it to Nico a little bit, but it's whatever Nico is familiar with and how quickly he gets to be comfortable. So that's the big deal. Got to build the relationship, not only in these offseason workouts and spring ball, but whenever they're given that opportunity to do so on their own.
UCLA, I think, needed some depth at tight end. They bring in Josh Pfeiffer. What do you know about Josh Pfeiffer? Not too many receiving stats. My hope would be for him, he could be more of a blocking tight end. He hasn't showcased too much offensively in the first couple years at JMU, but UCLA lost a key recruiting battle with a tight end who I thought they would have paired well with Pfeiffer. What do you know about the new JMU tight end UCLA Bruin?
Well, he's a redshirt sophomore, so he's only played a couple of years. He's got 6 receptions, 81 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But I am going to trust Bob Chesney in this one. There must be a reason that Bob Chesney is bringing over Josh Pfeiffer. And I'm a big believer, Zach. I don't know if anyone's taken this, but I probably should start it. Throw it to the tight end podcast. When you have a mismatch at tight end, it opens up the rest of the entire field because the linebacker usually can't keep up and the safety is too small. And when you open up the offense with the tight end, it opens up the running game. It opens up the passing game. Those crossing patterns, all of a sudden, the defensive back trailing can't make the tackle, and then you make one move on the safety, and boom, Landon Ellis is gone. Maybe that's how he ended up with his 17 yards a catch. That's what I'm a big throw to the tight end kind of guy, and we'll see if Josh Pfeiffer can be that way. Obviously, hasn't had much of a chance so far. But I'm going to trust Chesney with this one. There must be a reason other than he's a good blocker to bring over a tight end. You'd think you can find that anywhere, but they must like Josh Pfeiffer for a reason.
He's 6'5" from Georgia, so I think he's a good target potentially in the red zone if that's the work. But UCLA was crystal ball to go get Dorian Thomas from New Mexico, who was one of the best receiving tight ends out there. They lost that battle to Cal when they had both Pfeiffer and Thomas slated to go to UCLA. So I think the Bruins are still searching for that second tight end. If they had both of them, I could see the vision. Pfeiffer has an extra year. Thomas could grow in the offense. Instead, that's not how things worked out. Thomas signed with Cal, and they bring in Pfeiffer. But you make a good point. You got to trust in Bob Chesney. He watched what they did against Oregon, so he knows who can compete. And also, here's the key word, you still got to develop the guys. You still got to develop them. Right. That's what's made Curt Cignetti such a great coach at Indiana. Develop them at Elon. Develop them at James Madison. Develop them continually at Indiana. Despite the 3-star, 4-star talent, they are now number 1 in the country and the favorites to win the national championship. Continuing down this mold, you've got Aiden Gobera. All right, that's not the edge UCLA fans want in Sahir West. At this moment, he is not committed, but that's the guy who is currently third-team Sun Belt, decent numbers. What do you think about him moving over to UCLA to follow his defensive coordinator?
I mean, really good numbers because he's coming. He only made 1 start this year. So he's a third down guy, 38 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. I mean, those are pretty good numbers for a guy who doesn't appear to be getting in there to begin the ball game. Kind of like it, pressures it, pressures the quarterback, and obviously is getting some help. I mean, maybe undervalued with a guy like Sahir West on that line and Trent Hendricks, who was the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. So maybe a little bit under the radar because of the 2 guys. One got Defensive Player of the Year, and West got Freshman of the Year.
We're going to talk about the 2 O-linemen coming up next and what we think about the OCDC with UCLA bringing Hitchler and Kennedy on the following part of Locked On UCLA. Continuing our conversation, it's David Schultz of Locked On Sunbelt. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer of Locked On UCLA. Of course, rocking that JMU hat. I might need one of those. The purple looks pretty sweet with the Dukes.
I had to make a pit stop at the bookstore on the way out of town.
Do you have a hat for every team in the Sunbelt?
No,
or former team?
I'm getting close. I got two Marshall hats. I got a.
I feel like you need a We Are Marshall. Yeah, that
South
works.
Alabama hat. I got a handful of Cajuns caps. I'm doing pretty good. We got the I got the Coastal Carolina College World Series Omaha cap. I got a good chunk.
Okay.
You know, it would be nice if these schools who use my audio for their hype videos would send me payment in a cap. A check would be nice, but I'll take it in a cap. The Locked On Sunbelt has been used numerous times in hype videos. I don't even get a thank you.
So it's all good. Nice. That's what we deal with. Hype videos. Oh, he said something stupid. He said something good, and that we just bear the witness. Continuing on the conversation.
The official hype videos, Zach. The official hype videos of the schools before their football. I must be in half a dozen by now.
Now your goal is to get in all of them. Get in all of them. Be like, then you are truly locked on.
Yeah. The Marshall hats weren't cheap. I remember when these hats used to be like $20 or $25. I think I spent $80 on two caps at Marshall.
Wow. I think you're getting robbed. I think you're getting, unless they look good, but I guess I haven't seen them.
But a little pricey. But I'm almost halfway there.
Okay. Well, we're more than halfway through this list of 7. Now we're on the offensive linemen for UCLA. You have Riley Robel and J.D. Rayner, all right? It's one guy more of a red shirt, another guy more of a bigger name coming to UCLA. What do you take first of Riley Robel, an offensive lineman coming to UCLA?
Well, Riley worked his way into the starting lineup, played 13 games, started 11 at right guard, second team All-Sunbelt. I'm not sure if it matters, but I lived in not Harrisonburg, but Harrisburg. That's where some guy named Shady McCoy played high school football at Bishop McDevitt. That's where Robel went to high school as well, if that matters to UCLA fans. So he went to a pretty good pretty good high school football background. But obviously he comes with all the experience, whereas, J.D. Rayner was redshirted as a true freshman and only played in one ball game. So you do bring in the experience, and like you said, you bring in the potential at the same time.
Yeah, Rayner is a 6'4" freshman lineman who played in one game and got a red shirt this year. And he was an all-state player as a high school senior, honorable mention as a junior. But this is a guy UCLA's taking to somewhat stockpile the future O-lineman, because you need depth. You need big guys. And UCLA did not have that, any depth on the O-line or D-line for that matter. So it's almost like UCLA is kind of supplanting their lack of O-linemen in previous classes, because you're basically getting a true freshman with all the college work done in year one to come in and either be a backup and build to a starter or compete for a starting job.
Yeah, you brought up Bob Chesney. I want to ask you this because I brought this up on Locked On Sunbelt, that Chesney gets a nice little head start playing Oregon. So he's got an idea of what the Big Ten is all about before he plays a Big Ten opponent next year. So he's going to be able to look at that film against his players and look at the rest of Oregon's film and look at UCLA's film and how much of
we burn the tapes. We burn the tapes, David. We don't look at those. Except for Penn State, we burn the tapes.
But I think that's a huge advantage for Bob Chesney, whether compared if he was playing Texas Tech, right? If he played or whomever different, in the college football playoff. I think he gets a nice head start because JMU played Oregon instead of another team in the college football playoffs heading into next year. I think that's a huge advantage for Chesney.
And the advantage for Chesney, too, in UCLA, Oregon's losing both their coordinators. Here's the thing. One of the coordinators is going to be the head coach at Cal. UCLA's first game is at Cal in 2026. The Bruins, if I'm pretty sure, they do play Oregon this year. Got to remember all the schedules. It's a little crazy. But I think they do play Cal. So you got one of Oregon's coordinators who is balancing the Oregon-Cal job, going to Cal. UCLA plays them week 1. Then they go play Oregon. Right. And all of a sudden, you start to see this is what it's going to take to play in Eugene, to play a Dan Lanning coach team, even though the coordinators keep changing, getting head coaching jobs. That's the intensity and physicality he's brought in his 3 to 4 years as head coach of Oregon, regardless of who's been coordinating or not. Kenny Dillingham went to ASU. Both his coordinators are now at various spots in either the West Coast or East Coast. And now the Bruins, they know what it's going to be like. And my question to you is, how do you think JMU fared against Oregon? You've kind of already touched on it. How do you think the guys up front did against Oregon in that playoff game?
I think they did pretty well. All right. I think they just couldn't finish. All right. They got, this game, everyone was like, this game was over in the first 5 minutes, and it wasn't. It was 13-3, beginning of the second quarter, with JMU on Oregon's 10-yard line. They got an illegal procedure call. They moved back. Then I think they got sacked. So instead of being first and goal at the 10, it ended up being like first and goal from the 25. And so they were doing okay. They were moving the ball. Like I said, they had 197 yards in the first half against Oregon in Eugene. And I think that's a big deal compared to Texas Tech, who was in a neutral field in South Florida. Didn't get 198 yards until 3.5 quarters in. I think they did really well. By the way, the other coordinator is Will Stein, and he's heading back home here to Kentucky. I saw Will Stein play. I think the first start he had, some guy named Teddy Bridgewater came in behind him, just to let people know where Will Stein was. Will Stein, by the way, another one of those small guys. I don't think he's 6 foot.
Yeah. And but I mean, you never know how it works. It just continues and builds and builds. So now kind of transitioning to the coordinators, UCLA defensively, you think, I guess not putting words in your mouth, do you think they got a true winner with Colin Hitchler, who I believe with 1 to 2 years at JMU, just dominant with all those second half shutouts? You think he'll translate well to the Big Ten?
I absolutely do. And again, what an advantage to play a Big Ten opponent, way in advance, some 10 months, 9 months before you have to suit up again before the Big Ten, probably 10 months before you have to suit up again against another Big Ten opponent. They're a dominating defensive team, and they've been that way since Cignetti got there. They were dominant 2 years ago when Cignetti was still there, pretty good last year, and then as dominating as a defense as there had been in the Sun Belt this past season. So I think that's a great get. Obviously well compensated. We'll see how long he stays, because he's going to get his opportunity at being a head coach. So also, Zach, I want to know what you think. I don't know if we've discussed this or not, but again, Bob Chesney taking a different track than someone like a Will Stein, right? Working his way up as his assistant, never being a head coach before. Now he's head coach at Kentucky, whereas Bob Chesney has like 15 years of head coaching experience, Division II, III, and 1, and 1A, and now finally at the big time. Again, in December of 2023, he was the head coach at
Holy
Cross.
But Holy Cross is winning. Holy Cross is putting up big numbers at the FCS.
Sure.
The thing is, he's taken places that have not won and turned them into winners.
No.
And he knows what it takes. Other than really James Madison, he has taken players and taken teams with not a lot of tradition, not a lot of winning culture at Salva Regina. You do that at Assumption College. You do that at Holy Cross, which had never really won, and they dominated the Patriot League for all those years. Maybe never won a championship, but who really could in an era and a part of college football that's dominated by North Dakota State at the FCS level. So no kudos to him. It's not like Elon had won championships with James Madison. James Madison didn't even win a championship with Curt Cignetti when they were at the FCS. Then, as much as Curt Cignetti built up JMU, James Madison, they have turnover. The transfer portal is legitimate. So you bring in Bob Chesney, he's still got to bring in his own guys, find his own portal talent, and he still constructed a roster and coached it to the playoff and competed against Oregon. Absolutely. Now, was it Indiana that beat Oregon in Eugene like Curt Cignetti's team did earlier in the season? No, but it's his own team. So, fair point, Chesney built his own James Madison program in 2 years, because unlike previous eras of college football, 2 years in college football is now a lifetime, because you got guys who are on 3 different schools, literally, in a spring portal, winter portal, and now they're probably signing with their 3rd school in 2.5 years. He's built that up, so I think he's built for success. And the Bruins, from what I heard, what they wanted in this coaching search, they wanted a winner. Didn't mean they were looking for Nick Saban. Didn't mean they were looking for a loudmouth like Lane Kiffin. They wanted a proven winner. And with this coaching search committee, they pinpointed Chesney, the right guy, who is the complete opposite of Deshaun Foster in terms of experience. Foster had no experience as a coordinator or head coach. Right. No fault on his own. They just handed him the job. Anybody would take a job, something like that, in their field of some sort. But sometimes you pay the price if they're not a savant right away. And the Bruins paid the price. Obviously, there is a lack of support institutionally that they're building up as they are helping Chesney with a lot more support, a lot more resources. And by simply letting him bring in all of these JMU guys, not just players, but staffers to turn this team and culture into what UCLA should be, a real college football program.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So that is and I compared it earlier to on my podcast, Jeff Lebby, who had a better year this year at Mississippi State, but he had never been a head coach at any level, struggled last year. And Bob Chesney didn't. And he struggled a little bit in that they lost 3 times, double-digit leads, including the last game of the regular season. Marshall, they lost to ULM in a ball game they probably should have won. But other than that struggling, he's just done a good job. And I think he's going to be very successful. He's been, like you said, he was successful everywhere he's been. All right. Obviously, the level of competition is upgraded a lot. And, there's like a handful of teams that are really good in the Big Ten. We'll see what happens to Penn State. That's turning over. Washington seems to be having their issues in this portal. So we'll see what happens there. Michigan is starting over with Kyle Whittingham. And
I didn't think 2 years into the Big Ten, I'd be worried about Indiana on the schedule.
There you go.
Right? I didn't think in 2026, I'd be like, oh, are we avoiding Indiana? That's not really what I had in mind, but that is where we're headed. That is where we're headed.
Ryan Day has won a championship and went to the playoffs and is on the hot seat. Come on. And so there's a little upheaval in the Big Ten. Like you said, Zach, you mentioned the Raiders. I heard somebody suggest that the Raiders should go after Curt Cignetti and bring Mendoza with them. That would be insane.
That would be, I'd never thought about that.
Insanity.
That you go from James Madison to the Raiders. James
in 2
Madison,
years.
India. Yeah. That would be the greatest.
History.
I'd be down. That'd take down a Big Ten team and hopefully make my terrible franchise, my favorite team in the NFL, good. But I guess the other thing about college football, think about Indiana not letting Cignetti go. In every other time of football, he's probably gone to the LSUs, and we don't even have Lane Kiffin drama or something, right? They would secure that guy. No, Indiana secured the guy, so everybody's, we can't get Cignetti. Imagine how much less chaos there would be.
He's getting his third raise in 2 years. He's going to be I don't know how this works because you would think everybody else has it in their contract. He's going to be the third highest paid college coach in America.
He should be number one. He should be close to number one with what he's done.
If he wins, he will be. Yes, if he wins the national championship, he probably will be. Yes. Unless he goes to the NFL. But
where he'll still make. They paid Chip Kelly $6 million to be the Raiders offensive coordinator. Glad he walked out of that deal. Getting fired. Sorry. Right. We harbor bitter feelings to Chip Kelly, obviously now at Northwestern, which is a whole another thing over there, which is ridiculous. But speaking of offensive coordinators, I want to get your final thoughts. Dean Kennedy to UCLA. Do you think that offense, do you think it's fairly simple? Is it the matter of getting physical? Do you think it'll translate to the Big Ten, which runs the football, has a team like Iowa, which can't ever get the offense right other than just simply running the ball? Does it move, or do they need the right players and it'll work?
Well, I think both. Like you said, and you've been stressing this whole time, UCLA's offensive line was not very good, apparently, in the last couple of years. So they need to improve on that. They need to give Nico some time. If you are using Wayne Knight in the RPO, I think that's a good idea. But you do have to be able to throw the ball, right? You can't have 7-8 guys in the box at all times, and it's impossible to run against that. So I think the offense is going to be based on what talent they have. You have to make the adjustments. It's going to be their first year, and when they see each other in March for the first time, they'll figure out what they have. I'm going to guess whatever the plan is to begin with in March, it's going to be different when it goes to August. This is as much for the coaches as it is for the players. Kind of let's see what we have, and by the time we get to August, then we can institute what that offense is going to be, what works and what doesn't. And I would presume Nico is going to be part of that conversation, right? If he's going to be the starting quarterback, and most likely he's going to be, you got to get him. What is he comfortable with? What does he like? What doesn't he like? What can he improve on that should work? What is he not comfortable with? Like, we're just going to rip those pages out. So I think that is all part of coaching. There's players that you got to improve on that would be effective. And then there's stuff that I'm just not comfortable with, even if it may work once or twice. So I would think they got a good fit at offensive coordinator. It's kind of, how does he mold with Nico is going to be the big question.
Well, UCLA went from an offensive coordinator, first-time offensive coordinator, and then all of a sudden he was no longer offensive coordinator a few weeks into the season. Go with another first-time play caller in Jerry Neuheisel, and then now he's at Northwestern as a QB's coach, trying to get his reps built up for his college coaching career. So it's not like he's been built up for success.
Beat Penn State?
Yeah, but then the rest of the year, and he's still obviously, it's one thing to get coming out of nowhere and game plan for 2 days, and then next thing you know, it didn't work as well. But that's not fully Jerry's fault
because everybody else woke up.
Yeah, everybody else woke up. Everybody put a QB spy on Nico.
We can't
so they figured it out.
The Bruins, right?
Yeah. So, but that is David Schultz of Locked On Sunbelt, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer of Locked On UCLA.
We've gone almost 35 minutes. Zach, has Sahir West committed to UCLA yet?
No, we have not seen any Sahir West.
Making sure we get that.
No, there has been I see a post, any updates, not to my knowledge. So it doesn't look like there's any Sahir West commit. Not that it's fully linking there, but the Bruins definitely, they would upgrade their D-line immediately if they can get a Sahir West, but there's been no updates as of this moment. So there is.
Stay tuned to Locked On UCLA for all your Sahir West updates.
Well, for better or for worse, Right. That is David Schultz of Locked On Sunbelt, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer of Locked On UCLA. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off, and with David, go Bruins.